So the world of work. Gosh, it feels like it's been on fast forward for the past few years, hasn't it?
It really has.
The pandemic threw us all for a loop. Tech keeps evolving at like a warp speed.
Mm-hmm.
And even the broader landscape seems to be shifting more rapidly than ever.
Yeah.
And this isn't just, abstract stuff. It's having a real impact right at the very top of organizations, the boardroom.
Yeah.
Turns out those discussions happening behind closed doors are, well, anything but predictable these days.
That's absolutely right. The relative certainty that many organizations once operated within, that's been replaced by a much more fluid, much more demanding environment, especially when it comes to their most valuable asset, their people, their talent.
And that brings us directly to you, our listener. You're someone who wants to cut through the noise and really understand the forces shaping our professional lives and, well, organizations we're a part of.
Yeah.
Think of this deep dive as your express lane to getting that understanding. We've distilled some really crucial insights here.
Trying to give you the knowledge you need without getting bogged down in, endless details.
Exactly.
So today, our exploration is fueled by a recording of a recent Boardroom Masterclass event.
Right.
And this wasn't just a casual chat. It brought together a really diverse group of influential figures. You had board chairs, members, CEOs, CFOs, company secretaries, regulators, people from finance, telecoms, energy, law, HR professionals. Quite a mix.
A real powerhouse of experience and perspectives, then.
Yeah.
And their focus was really getting down to the core of talent management, how organizations are attracting the right people.
Yeah, how they're keeping them engaged.
And even how they navigate the separation process when it's necessary.
Which is always tricky.
So our mission today really is to extract those key learnings, the practical insights that show us how boards are steering their organizations through this, constantly changing world of talent.
Okay, let's dive in.
Let's do it.
So maybe let's begin by just establishing the broader context that the shifting landscape of talent itself.
Okay, if you consider Africa, for instance, it presents a particularly interesting demographic picture. Very young population.
Right.
In Uganda, for example, something like 78% of the population is under 30. That's huge.
Wow, 78%. That has significant implications for the workforce, now and definitely in the future.
Absolutely.
And it's not just about the demographics within a single nation, is it? Talent is, well, increasingly mobile.
That's a key point.
We heard that compelling example from East African breweries, where the largest group of their expert workforce from Uganda is actually working outside Uganda.
Right, within the wider East African region.
It really makes you wonder about the potential impact if borders become even more open across the continent,
That increasing movement of talent is definitely a key factor. And then, of course, we need to consider the powerful influence of technology.
Oh, yeah.
It's not simply automating existing roles. It's actually generating entirely new categories of demand.
Like cybersecurity experts? Exactly. That's a now essential role that was, relatively niche just a decade ago.
True.
And we're also seeing this rapid growth of expertise in areas like ESG, environmental, social, and governance.
Right. ESG is everywhere now.
Becoming critical considerations at the very highest levels of organizations.
And it feels like global events are constantly adding new layers of complexity, too. Economic shifts, geopolitical uncertainties. These must be significantly impacting where talent chooses to go and the skills that are most sought after.
Absolutely. We're definitely observing shifts in which sectors are seeing the most growth and the emergence of, well, entirely new job functions.
So where are those shifts happening?
Well, digitization is a massive engine of this change, obviously. And so is the growing emphasis on sustainability. You now see dedicated heads of sustainability in many organizations. That role simply didn't exist not long ago. And interestingly, even areas like specialized education and green agriculture are becoming significant hubs for talent development and demand. Both KPMG's survey for East Africa and the World Economic Forum report on agriculture kind of highlight this trend.
It's fascinating how the focus is evolving beyond some of the, let's say, traditionally valued skills, like in accounting.
Yeah.
Having a strong grasp of IFRS, international financial reporting standards, that used to be the ultimate qualification.
It's a gold standard.
Exactly. But now, it seems boards are placing at least as much importance on skills like critical thinking, creativity, resilience, flexibility, agility, innovation. Yeah. The World Economic Forum even estimates that a significant number, like 44% of workers, will face a substantial disruption to their skill sets within the next 5 years.
45%, that's huge.
Why do you think this shift is happening so fast? Is it just the tech?
Well, that's a crucial question. The rapid pace of technological advancement is certainly a major driver, automating routine tasks and requiring humans to focus on more complex, strategic, and interpersonal skills. But I think it's also a reflection of a more interconnected and, frankly, unpredictable global environment.
Where you just have to adapt.
Exactly. Adaptability and innovative problem solving are just paramount for organizational success now.
Which makes you wonder about our education systems.
Mm-hmm.
Are they adequately preparing people with these crucial skills for the evolving job market?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah. That example of primary school curricula shifting.
Oh, the Lake Victoria one.
Yeah. Shifting from just rote memorization, like who discovered Lake Victoria.
Right, which is a whole other issue.
True. But shifting towards understanding the lake's economic significance, the environmental threats it faces, that really illustrates the kind of, analytical and adaptive thinking that's now essential.
It really does. It's about understanding complexity, not just facts.
Definitely. And, okay, we can't overlook the profound impact of the pandemic on where and how we work.
Absolutely not.
Remote and hybrid models. They've moved from being like exceptions to becoming pretty standard operating procedures for many organizations.
Oh, sure.
How has this shift influenced the talent landscape from, say, a board's perspective?
Well, the rise of remote work has certainly broadened the potential talent pool for many organizations, hasn't it? You're no longer limited by geography.
Right.
But it also presents new challenges, things like maintaining organizational culture, ensuring effective communication, adapting management styles for teams that are spread out.
Yeah, managing remotely is a different skill set.
It is. So boards are now grappling with how to optimize these new work models for both, productivity and employee well-being. It's a balancing act.
So all of this really paints a picture of a truly dynamic, constantly evolving talent landscape.
It really does. So with that broader understanding as our foundation, let's delve into the first key area that the masterclass participants explored: talent acquisition.
Okay, getting the right people in the door.
Exactly. And, it's vital to recognize that effectively attracting the right people goes far beyond just like posting a job ad.
Okay, so if it's more than just traditional recruitment, what specific areas are boards focusing on then? It sounds like understanding motivations, especially for younger generations.
Well, actually important.
The traditional package of benefits might not cut it anymore. What's replacing it?
You're right. There's a significant emphasis now on taking a more inclusive approach to recruitment, and that includes thinking geographically.
Geographically, how so?
Well, we heard this really compelling example of a Big 4 firm in Uganda that made a conscious effort to recruit from various regions across the country, not just the capital or the main urban centers.
Oh, interesting.
And this strategic decision allowed them to tap into a much more diverse range of perspectives and skills. It's about acknowledging that talent isn't just concentrated in one place.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And with talent becoming increasingly mobile across Africa, as we said, it seems organizations need to think beyond their immediate national borders when looking for the right people anyway.
Precisely. And it's not solely about where individuals come from, but also the environment they're choosing to join. Organizational culture, that plays such a pivotal role.
In attracting and keeping people, right?
Exactly. Both attracting and, crucially, retaining talent. While, competitive compensation is undoubtedly important,
Of course.
it's often not enough on its own to foster that long-term engagement and commitment.
So what elements of culture are really attractive now?
Well, things like purpose, values alignment, opportunities for growth, a sense of belonging, these are becoming much more central.
We're also seeing shifts in governance that are influencing talent acquisition, aren't we? Boards themselves need to adapt.
Absolutely.
They increasingly need members who are digitally literate and can effectively engage with younger, more tech-savvy teams. How's this changing the makeup of boards?
Boards are definitely recognizing the need for a broader range of skills and experiences among their members. This includes individuals with expertise in tech, digital transformation,
Right.
and increasingly a deep understanding of the perspectives and expectations of younger generations in the workforce.
And what's fascinating here, you mentioned, is the heightened focus on ethics and integrity during hiring,
Yes, very much so.
which can be really hard to assess in an interview, right?
Extremely difficult. But they're now considered absolutely fundamental to an organization's long-term sustainability and its reputation.
It almost feels like you need to be a mind reader sometimes.
Yeah.
But it also underscores the board's crucial role in setting that ethical tone right from the very top.
Precisely.
Diversity and inclusion also fall under this umbrella, don't they? It's
Sure.
not just like an HR initiative anymore.
No, it's a core value that the board must actively champion. And diversity, extends beyond just gender, although gender balance remains a critical objective for many.
Right. It's broader than that.
It encompasses a wider spectrum age, different professional backgrounds, regional origins, essentially bringing in a multitude of perspectives that can enrich decision-making and innovation.
We heard some really insightful anecdotes from past recruitment experiences during the masterclass, like that surprising trend.
Oh, the banking one.
Yeah, highly achieving first-class university graduates having higher turnover rates in banking compared to, say, diploma holders or those with professional certifications.
Right, who tended to have greater longevity.
What might explain that? Seems counterintuitive.
Well, that observation suggests that maybe factors beyond just pure academic excellence are at play. Things like a clearer understanding of career paths, maybe more realistic expectations about entry-level roles, and perhaps a greater emphasis on practical skills and vocational commitment. These could be stronger indicators of long-term retention.
Interesting.
There was also that deliberate strategy mentioned of recruiting more women in finance, partly driven by observations around maybe ethical tendencies, but also the recognized need for gender balance within teams. And of course, acknowledging practical considerations like supporting maternity leave effectively.
And the point was made that even within a group that seems homogenous, like an institution mostly run by women,
Yeah.
seeking diversity of thought,
Yeah.
even getting male perspectives on topics like women's empowerment was seen as vital.
To achieve a more nuanced and comprehensive understanding,
Exactly.
which really highlights those important distinctions between diversity, inclusion, and equity.
Yes. They're not the same thing.
As it was put, diversity is being invited to the party.
Inclusion is being asked to dance.
And equity, which isn't the same as equality, acknowledges that people start from different places and might need different support to have a fair shot.
Like that example of offering paid internships.
Right. To ensure accessibility for people from all socioeconomic backgrounds.
Exactly. It levels the playing field somewhat. So it's not just about having diverse numbers, but actively creating an environment where everyone feels valued, has a voice, and crucially has a fair chance to succeed.
And it sounds like boards have a real responsibility here
Exactly.
to ensure clear D&I policies are in place and that these aren't just, statements on a website.
But tied to measurable KPIs.
Right, tied to measurable key performance indicators.
Exactly.
Okay, so when specifically looking at attracting senior leadership, what were the top considerations for boards mentioned in the masterclass?
The top three really emphasized were, first, ethics. Absolutely crucial.
Okay.
Second, empathy and self-awareness, which, fosters humility.
Right.
And third, the capacity for taking responsibility and making decisive choices.
That analogy of the lizard from Lagos to Washington really stuck with me.
Yes, it suggests that fundamental character traits are pretty deeply ingrained.
And tend to persist. Yeah.
Tend to persist across different environments. That's a powerful image. And the emphasis on self-awareness for leaders, even those stepping into really big shoes, is so critical.
Understanding one's own strengths and limitations is paramount for effective leadership. Absolutely.
So interestingly, there was that cautionary note about too much creativity in certain professions.
Yes, like accounting and law.
Right. You probably don't want your financial auditor getting too artistic with the numbers.
Probably not. Precision and adherence to protocols are pretty key there.
But overall, the prevailing trend seems to be this growing appreciation for people skills and emotional intelligence, empathy, self-awareness,
Yes.
as being just as, if not more, critical than purely technical expertise in leadership roles.
Definitely. And boards need to be mindful, too, that younger generations in the workforce often prefer flatter organizational structure.
A collaborative environment.
Exactly. The traditional hierarchical model might not be as appealing or, frankly, as effective for them.
Which leads us right to that crucial element of culture fit in recruitment. It's not simply a question of, can this person do the job?
Right. Ticking the boxes isn't enough.
It's whether they will thrive and be a positive contributor within the organization's specific environment.
Precisely. Talent acquisition really should be viewed as a comprehensive process. It goes way beyond a brief, maybe 2-hour interview.
Yeah.
It needs a clearly defined understanding of the desired candidate profile, and then a thorough assessment of how well that candidate's values and beliefs align with the organization's core culture, its values, its overarching purpose.
And succession planning came up, too, as a fundamental board responsibility.
Absolutely, a primary role.
And there seems to be a growing recognition of the big advantages of promoting qualified internal candidates when you have that strong leadership potential already within the organization.
Definitely. Developing your own talent. But that doesn't diminish the importance of conducting thorough external searches as well.
Right, you still need to look outside.
To ensure you're accessing the widest possible pool of talent and considering diverse perspectives, the board plays a vital role here in setting the clear criteria for those searches.
Okay, so once you've successfully acquired the talent, the work doesn't stop there, does it?
Not at all.
Investing in training, development programs, even things like reverse mentoring.
Yeah, where junior employees share insights with senior leaders.
Those are seen as essential for effectively integrating new hires, right?
Absolutely. And boards need to be acutely aware of those often high turnover rates, especially within the first 6 months or so.
The danger zone.
Kind of, yeah. So implementing really robust onboarding and integration processes is therefore critical.
And that discussion around the Great Resignation, it really underscored the significance of employees feeling a strong connection to the organization's mission and purpose.
Yes. If that connection is missing,
The likelihood of them leaving increases significantly.
it really does.
It raises a really interesting point, though. What happens when the board's own culture isn't aligned with the organizational culture they're trying to build in the broader company?
Ooh, that's a tough one. It seems like achieving alignment at the board level is also essential then.
You'd think so.
Absolutely. And sometimes, even senior leaders might struggle to clearly articulate the nuances of their organization's culture.
Yeah.
That anecdote shared about the U.S. investment bank
Oh, right.
that presented conflicting messages. On one hand, people are our greatest asset, but on the other, a perceived primary focus on financial returns.
That really illustrates the potential disconnect.
It powerfully does.
So it seems to come back to the importance of board members exercising humility and developing a genuine understanding of the executives and employees they oversee, fostering an environment of open, honest communication.
Exactly that.
Okay, so we've explored the complexities of bringing talent into the organization. What about the equally important challenge of keeping that talent engaged and committed for the long term? Because it sounds like that can be an even greater hurdle sometimes.
You're absolutely right. In today's environment, where talent mobility is increasing, and we're even seeing this trend of individuals wanting shorter employment stints with planned career breaks. Retention has become a paramount concern.
And the masterclass discussions emphasize that people aren't just leaving for money, right?
Often not. Other factors frequently play a more significant role in their decisions.
So what are the critical elements then? What should boards be actively focusing on for successful talent retention?
Well, 3 key areas were really highlighted. First, gaining a deep understanding of the stakeholder environment.
Meaning?
Truly knowing the demographics, the needs, the aspirations of your employee base, really understanding who works for you.
Okay, makes sense.
Second, proactively creating a workplace environment where individuals can genuinely thrive.
Like the lactation room example.
Exactly. That's a small but really impactful demonstration of understanding and supporting employees' diverse needs.
Right.
And third, making a continuous commitment to reinvest in and, frankly, reinvent that environment as circumstances evolve.
So it's definitely not a static solution. You can't just implement a few policies and think you're done.
Precisely. It requires a continuous effort. You need to actively solicit feedback from employees about their needs, their concerns.
Not just assume you know.
Don't just assume. Think of it like maintaining a building. You need ongoing reinvestment, renovation.
To keep it functional, attractive, fit for purpose.
Exactly. And effective retention is also intrinsically linked to providing opportunities for both vertical career progression, moving up, and also lateral movement within the organization, allowing employees to grow and develop in different ways.
And boards need to be careful not to get complacent. Right.
Hmm.
Assuming that strategies that worked 5 years ago will still work now.
That's a huge risk. Agility and a willingness to adapt to the changing expectations of the workforce seem absolutely crucial.
And it's vital, you mentioned, to contextualize global best practices to the specific local environment.
Oh, absolutely.
That example of introducing advanced mechanization in agriculture in Uganda,
Yeah, and the complexities around land tenure.
it powerfully illustrated the need for that local understanding and adaptation. You can't just copy and paste solutions.
You really can't.
We also heard about the significant role boards can play in supporting things like internship programs.
Yes, to cultivate local expertise in specialized fields like actuarial science was the example given, building that pipeline.
And the analogy drawn to Liverpool Football Club's approach.
Developing talent from within their ranks. Yeah, that was quite insightful. A different context, but the principle applies.
Okay. So we've discussed attracting and retaining talent. What about the often sensitive issue of talent separation?
Yes, separation, particularly when it involves difficult circumstances, it presents its own unique set of complexities.
And in the public sector, the influence of the appointing authority can add another layer, right?
It can introduce an additional layer of considerations, yes.
It's important to remember, though, that joining an organization isn't necessarily a lifelong commitment.
Absolutely. As it was aptly put, it's not a marriage.
Right. And there are different forms of separation, including just straightforward contractual agreements ending.
Yes. The key principle, really, is to ensure that all separation processes are handled with professionalism and civility. Except, of course, in clear cases of gross misconduct.
And it's crucial not to burn bridges
Definitely not. Individuals might potentially return to the organization later.
or become partners, clients.
Exactly. Become valuable partners or clients in the future. You never know.
It sounds like the separation process can be emotionally challenging, though, for both the person leaving and the people staying.
It can be very painful for both the individual and the organization. Absolutely.
And in that public sector context, the power dynamics, where the shareholder, the government, is also a political entity.
Yeah.
That can sometimes influence separation decisions in ways that go beyond just performance, potentially.
That can happen. Ideally, the relationship between the appointing authority, like the minister, and the board should function so that the minister appoints and then empowers the board to effectively manage all the HR functions, including those difficult but necessary processes of talent separation.
Right, maintaining that operational efficiency and strategic focus.
Okay, let's shift focus a bit to the composition of the board itself. How should boards be structured? And should that differ between, say, a startup and a more established company?
A good question. The optimal board composition for a, brand new startup will likely differ quite significantly from that of a more mature, established organization.
Makes sense.
Ultimately, the structure of the board should be carefully aligned with the specific objectives of the shareholders and the overarching goals of the organization. But regardless of the board size of the company's stage, the fundamental principles remain the same: effective oversight and strategic execution. We heard that early-stage companies are sometimes hesitant to set up formal boards.
Yes, that's common.
In those cases, it was suggested that maybe forming advisory committees could be a good first step.
A very valuable initial step, yes. Providing access to crucial external perspectives and guidance without the full formality immediately.
And even within family-owned businesses, where there might be a tendency to keep things internal, bringing in external, independent expertise can offer really invaluable benefits and fresh insights.
Definitely. There's also that potential opportunity for experienced, maybe recently retired professionals to offer their skills and knowledge to startups, perhaps on a voluntary basis initially.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Now, this brings us to an interesting, maybe slightly awkward question that came up. Should boards ask about a candidate's salary history during recruitment?
Ah, the salary history question. Tricky one.
Yeah.
Well, the board itself might not directly ask for that specific number, but it's often a data point that gets considered at some stage during the overall hiring process.
Right, maybe by HR or the recruiters.
Exactly. And in discussions around compensation, the prevailing recommendation from the masterclass, however, was really to focus primarily on the inherent value and the scope of the role being filled.
And try not to anchor the offer solely to what they earned before.
Exactly. Avoid anchoring compensation decisions solely to past earnings, which might not accurately reflect their current market worth or, crucially, their potential contribution. It could be under or even overinflated.
Especially now, with the rise of highly accomplished younger professionals.
Yes.
They should be compensated based on their skills, their experience, the value they bring, not just their age or what they made in their last job.
Precisely. Focus on the role and the value.
Okay. Another relevant point discussed was people surveys within organizations. Why might some leaders be reluctant to participate in these? They seem valuable.
They are valuable, but it seems concerns around confidentiality are often a significant factor.
Worried about where the data goes.
Yeah, leaders might worry about how the collected data will be handled, who will see it, whether it could potentially be shared inappropriately, maybe even with competitors. Building trust around confidentiality is key.
But the value of participating, getting those insights into employee engagement, industry trends, that's huge.
Undeniable value, yes. You need that feedback loop.
Okay, shifting down to the operational level for a moment. The question came up about whether the board should be involved in recruiting lower-level staff, like drivers, cooks, administrative support.
Right. How far down does board involvement go?
Yeah.
The consensus seemed to be that while, yes, legally the board might hold ultimate responsibility as the employer, technically, delegating the recruitment for non-senior roles to the appropriate management levels is really essential.
For efficiency.
For efficiency, and also to allow the board to concentrate on its core strategic oversight functions. They shouldn't be interviewing the drivers.
Got it. Now, let's address a profoundly important aspect impacting everyone: mental health and work-life balance.
Hugely important.
That statistic mentioned, about 1.4 million people in Uganda potentially affected by mental health conditions. That really underscores the scale of this issue.
It's a massive number.
And this extends directly into the workplace, doesn't it? So what role should the board play here? Fostering a supportive environment, ensuring good health policies.
Absolutely. Boards have a key role in promoting employee well-being and ensuring the implementation of comprehensive health policies, which must include robust mental health support.
We heard that really insightful example of an organization supporting an employee with bipolar disorder.
Yes, by taking the time to understand their specific needs, their potential triggers, that's real support.
It is. The discussion also touched upon the evolving understanding of optimal working hours.
Yeah, and how COVID just blew up traditional work schedules and norms.
Totally. It really highlighted the increasing importance of promoting genuine work-life balance.
And the need for organizations to establish clear guidelines and policies that actually support this.
Like setting reasonable expectations around answering emails outside of work hours.
Exactly that. Not expecting people to be on 24/7.
Which leads naturally to the question of how boards can effectively engage with management beyond just formal meetings.
Yeah, getting beyond the boardroom table.
What are some innovative ways to foster stronger communication and trust?
Well, suggestions included things like incorporating team-building sessions that involve both board members and senior management.
To break down silos?
Exactly. To break down potential silos and cultivate more open, more candid dialogue. Ensuring transparency about the challenges management is facing is also crucial for effective board oversight. They need the full picture.
Not just the good news.
Definitely not just the good news.
Okay, and finally, the evolving landscape of maternity leave was briefly touched upon. Uganda moving towards 6 months.
Yes, that trend towards longer leave. It was also mentioned that some forward-thinking organizations, like Uganda breweries apparently, are already exceeding this minimum.
Offering even more extended leave options. Good for them. Which brings us to a really crucial consideration for boards navigating the future. What specific skills and knowledge do they need to effectively lead and manage these increasingly diverse, digitally native younger generations?
It's not enough just to acknowledge the demographic shift, right?
Yeah.
You have to adapt.
Exactly.
Well, training programs focused on unconscious bias were highlighted
Okay.
as a valuable tool to help board members challenge preconceived notions and develop a more nuanced understanding of the needs and aspirations of younger employees.
And the idea of creating specific projects.
Yes, creating specific projects and initiatives to provide growth and management experience for individuals maybe in non-managerial roles currently. It's a way to foster leadership development right across the organization.
Okay, wow. We've covered a significant amount of ground in this deep dive into the Boardroom Masterclass.
We certainly have. Lots of rich discussion there.
Considering all the insights shared, what would you say are the most crucial takeaways for our listener to sort of hold on to?
Okay, key takeaways. First, the landscape of talent is incredibly dynamic. That's clear. Shaped by demographics, tech, global events.
Constant change.
Constant change. Second, attracting talent needs a multifaceted approach beyond just recruitment. Culture, ethics, understanding motivations are key. Third, retaining valuable employees is an ongoing process. It demands continuous adaptation and real investment in their well-being and development. It's not set and forget.
Right.
Fourth, navigating talent separation requires professionalism and foresight. Don't burn bridges.
Yeah.
And fundamentally, the role and even the composition of boards themselves are evolving to effectively address all these new and complex challenges. Boards need to change too.
Absolutely. So here's a final thought, perhaps, for you, the listener, to mull over. As those traditional boundaries between structured employment and maybe more flexible, purpose-driven careers continue to dissolve,
Which they seem to be doing.
how will organizations truly adapt their strategies to not only attract a skilled workforce, but also to cultivate one that is deeply engaged and ultimately fulfilled?
That's the big question, isn't it? It's something that really warrants careful consideration. We'd encourage you to reflect on the insights we've explored today.
Maybe seek out further resources, other discussions on this vital subject.
And we'd certainly be interested to hear about your own experiences and perspectives on these issues, too.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive.